we continue the N.J. Dawood translation of Koran with the spoils. Some adjustments will be made, and some commentary, of course. In the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful, they ask you about the spoils. Say the spoils belong to Allah and the Apostle. Therefore, have fear of Allah and end your disputes. Obey Allah and His Apostle if you are true believers. It's interesting, this word. I mean, yeah, it refers to the Battle of Badr, 624, the Common Era. But things are much broader than that. That's why you don't see the names of all the battles and all that stuff. But the spoils, see, it's related to the word nafal, voluntary, I mean, nafal, the true believers are those whose hearts are filled with awe at the mention of Allah, and whose faith grows stronger as they listen to His revelations. And voluntary, I mean, as in, these extra. The physical rewards or the physical results of the battles are extra. It's not the point to capture land or slaves or anything like that. In fact, general Islamic teachings say that that's cursed, to fight to force conversion, to fight to gain land and treasure and slaves and all that sort of stuff. They are those who put their trust in their Lord, pray steadfastly, and bestow an alms from that which we have given them. Such are the true believers. They will be exalted and forgiven by their Lord, and a generous provision shall be made for them. Your Lord bade you leave your home to fight for justice, but some of the faithful were reluctant. They argued with you about the truth that had been revealed, as though they were being led to certain death. While they looked on, Allah promised you victory over one of the two bands, but it was your wish to take possession of the one that was unarmed. Allah wished to vindicate the truth by His words and to rout the unbelievers, so that He might vindicate the truth and render falsehood vain, though the wrongdoers wished otherwise. When you prayed to your Lord for help, He answered, I am sending to your aid 1,000 angels in their ranks. Unfallen angels, light things. By this good news, Allah sought to reassure your hearts, for victory comes only from Allah. Allah is mighty and wise. You were overcome by sleep, a token of His protection. He sent down water from the sky to cleanse you and to purify you of Satan's filth, to strengthen your hearts and to steady your footsteps. Allah revealed His will to the angels, saying, I shall be with you. Give courage to the believers. I shall cast terror into the hearts of the misbelievers. Strike off their heads. Strike off the very tips of their fingers. Now, 8:12 and 47:4. Don't talk about dismemberment and all that as, oh, well, this is a punishment for disbelieving. No, this is on the battlefield. So don't take this out of context here. Someone's in a fight, that's obviously something that goes. Fight for life, obviously. Or sometimes you don't know, somebody physically attacks people. And that was because they defied Allah and His Apostle. He that defies Allah and His Apostle shall be sternly punished by Allah. We said to them, taste this, the scourge of the fire awaits the unbelievers. Believers, when you encounter the misbelievers on the march, do not turn your backs to them in flight. If anyone on that day turns his back to them, except for tactical reasons, or to join another band, he shall incur the wrath of Allah, and hell shall be his home, an evil fate. Because if people give that up, sometimes that stops other things from happening, right? Give up the turning away and running away stuff that people, because some people, like people are bullies, for example, sometimes they'll just completely avoid the people who fight back. Even though they win, they'll avoid the people who fight back. They won't do it again. Or sometimes they won't do it at all because they're like, oh, it's not even worth it. It was not you, but Allah who slew them. It was not you who smote them. Allah smote them, so that he might richly reward the faithful. Allah hears all and knows all. Even so, Allah will surely frustrate the designs of the unbelievers. If you were seeking a judgment, now has a judgment come to you. If you desist, it will be best for you. If you resume your war against the faithful, we will return to their assistance, and your forces superior, though they be in number, shall avail you nothing. For Allah is with the faithful. Believers obey Allah and his apostle, and do not forsake him. Now that you have heard all, do not be like those who say, we hear, but give no heed to what they hear. The meanest beasts in Allah's sight are those that are deaf, dumb, and devoid of reason, by choice. Had Allah perceived any virtue in them, he would have surely endowed them with hearing. But even if he had made them hear, they would have turned away and refused to listen. So some people don't have abilities because it wouldn't have benefited them ultimately. Believers obey Allah and the apostle when he calls you to that which gives you life. Know that Allah stands between man and his heart, and that in his presence you shall all be assembled. And the ultimate presence, God's already there. God's furthest away, most, and around everything in between. And you're like, so God can save you from yourself sometimes without any expectation or effort on your part. Guard yourselves against temptation. The wrongdoers among you are not the only men who will be tempted. Know that Allah's punishment is stern. And that's the thing too. Is you got to be part of that yourself. You got to make that effort to stop yourself from doing stuff. Remember how he gave you shelter when you were few in number and persecuted in the land, ever fearing the onslaught of your enemies. He made you strong with his help and provided you with good things so that you might give thanks. Believers, do not betray Allah and the apostle, nor knowingly betray your trust. Know that your worldly goods and your children are but of temptation, and that Allah's reward is great. Believers, if you fear Allah, he will grant you salvation and cleanse you of your sins and forgive you. The bounty of Allah is great. Remember how the unbelievers plotted against you. They sought to take you captive, or to have you slain or banished. They schemed, but Allah also schemed. Allah is the most profound in his machinations. Now, a lot of people like to put Muhammad into parentheses and stuff like this, but as I said, just because it was to Muhammad and it just directly taught him how to live his life and all that, and those around him, doesn't mean that, if we put all those names in, some of that ability for it to do that to us would be taken away. Whenever our revelations are recited to them, they say, we have heard them. If we wished, we could say the like. They are but fables of the ancients. They also say, Lord, if this be your revealed truth, rain down upon us stones from heaven, or send some dreadful scourge to punish us. But Allah would not punish them while you were present in their midst, nor would Allah punish them if they sought forgiveness. Yet it is but just that Allah should punish them, for they have debarred others from the sacred mosque, although they have no right to be its guardians. Its only guardians are those that fear Allah, though most of them do not know it. Now, any masjid, this is just absolutely inappropriate behavior, to actually forbid people from going. Now, there could be safety or war issues or something like that, but countries that take part in this, that what they're doing is causing that people can't attend their prayers, whether they're obligatories or otherwise. I see, on the news, people being driven out of retreats, driven out of attending prayers, and they're like, well, it's the voluntary ones they're after. It's like, well, yeah, it's just stop it. Whether it's voluntary or obligatory prayers that they prefer to do in the congregation, just leave the people alone at it. Their prayers at the sacred house are nothing but whistling and clapping of hands. Taste then the scourge. because you disbelieved. Now, see, when you're playing musical instruments, it doesn't count as prayer. The unbelievers expend their riches in debarring others from the path of the law. Thus they dissipate their wealth, but they shall rue it, and in the end be overthrown. The unbelievers shall into hell be driven. Allah will separate the wicked from the just. He will heap all the wicked one upon another, and then cast them into hell. These will surely be the losers. Tell the unbelievers that if they mend their ways, their past shall be forgiven. But if they persist in sin, let them reflect upon the fate of their forefathers. Make war on them until idolatry shall cease and Allah's religion shall reign supreme. If they desist, Allah is cognizant of all their actions. But if they give no heed, know then that Allah will protect you. He is the noblest helper and the noblest protector. Know that 1/5 of your spoils shall belong to Allah, the apostles' kinsfolk, the orphans, the destitute, and those that travel the road. If you truly believe in Allah and what we revealed to our servant on the day of the victory, the day when the true armies met, Allah has power over all things. Now your zakat this isn't what's talked about. This is what comes to the government, and not the government to redistribute the charities for the poor, which is the zakat. It's different. You were encamped on this side of the valley, and the unbelievers on the farther side with the caravan below. Had they offered battle, you would have surely declined, but Allah sought to accomplish what he had ordained, so that by a clear sign, he that was destined to perish might die, and he that was destined to live might survive. Allah hears all and knows all. And going back to the fifth thing, some people have deviated about that and said that the religious leaders of the community should have 1/5 of the income of the community. And sure, they tend to take care of the place of worship and some other stuff as part of it, but it'd be better for things to go straight towards schools to teach religion and places of worship and stuff rather than anyways. Allah made them appear to you in a dream as a small band. Had he shown them to you as a great army, your courage would have failed you and discord would have triumphed in your ranks. But this Allah spared you. He knows your inmost thoughts, and when you met them, he made each appear to the other few in number, that Allah might accomplish what he had ordained. To Allah shall all things return. Believers, when you meet their army, stand firm and pray fervently to Allah so that you may triumph. Only Allah and his apostle. Obey Allah and his apostle and do not dispute with one another, lest you lose courage and your resolve weaken. Have patience. Allah is with those that are patient. And remember, that it's not about imposing your own will or your own taste upon people. Just the revelation and the inspiration, and obeying the messenger. It wasn't about his likes or dislikes, because people are all falling around about, oh well, he had his hat this way versus that way, or he liked this food versus that food, and he liked to walk around this. There's so many hundreds and hundreds of narrations about that, probably thousands. But did he command this stuff? No, he didn't. And you shouldn't command your tastes either, per se. Do not be like those who left their homes elated with insolence and vainglory. They debar others from the path of Allah, but Allah has knowledge of all their actions. Satan made their foul deeds seem fair to them. He said, no man shall conquer you this day. I shall be at hand to help you. But when the two armies came within sight of each other, he took to his heels, saying, I am done with you, for I can see what you cannot. I fear Allah. Allah's punishment is stern. The hypocrites and those whose hearts were diseased said, their religion has deceived them, but he that puts his trust in Allah shall find Allah mighty and wise. If you could see the angels when they carry off the souls of the unbelievers, They shall strike them on their faces and their backs, saying, Taste the torment of the conflagration. This is the punishment for what your hands committed. Allah is not unjust to his servants. Like Pharaoh's people and those before them, they disbelieved in Allah's revelations. Therefore Allah will smite them for their sins. Mighty is Allah and stern his retribution. Allah does not change the blessings he has bestowed on men until they change what is in their hearts. Allah hears all and knows all. Like Pharaoh's people and those before them, they disbelieve their Lord's revelations. Therefore, we will destroy them for their sins, even as we drowned Pharaoh's people. They were wicked men. All the basest creatures in the sight of Allah are the faithless who will not believe, those who time after time violate their treaties with you and have no fear of Allah. If you capture them in battle, discriminate between them and those that follow them, so that their followers may take warning. And one of the things is that, okay, these people don't believe as one does, or believe at all. But see, we're trying to keep treaties. We're trying to be at good terms with the other religious communities, or secular communities, or whatever. If you fear treachery from any of your allies, you may fairly retaliate by breaking off your treaty with them. Allah does not love the treacherous. Let not the unbelievers think that they will ever get away. They have not the power to do so. Muster against them all the men and cavalry at your command, so that you may strike terror into the enemy of Allah and your enemy and others beside them who are unknown to you, but known to Allah. All that you give for the cause of Allah shall be repaid you. You shall not be wronged. If they incline to peace, make peace with them and put your trust in Allah. It is surely He who hears all and knows all. Should they seek to deceive you, Allah is sufficient for you. He has made you strong with His help and rallied the faithful round you, making their hearts one. If you had given away all the riches of the earth, you could not have so united them, but Allah has united them. He is the mighty and wise. Prophet, Allah is your strength, and the faithful who follow you. In Buddhism, you have, that three thing going on. But here we seek refuge with God, and who gives the prophet strength, and the believing community are as far as the community believes. That's also the strength. Prophet, rouse the faithful to arms. If there are 20 steadfast men among you, they shall vanquish 200, and if there are 100, they shall rout 1,000 unbelievers, for they are devoid of understanding. Allah has now lightened your burden, for He knows that you are weak. If there are 100 steadfast men among you, they shall vanquish 200, and if there are 1,000, they shall by Allah's will defeat 2,000. Allah is with those that are steadfast. A prophet may not take captives until he has fought and triumphed in the land. You seek the chance gain of this world, but Allah desires for you the world to come. Allah is mighty and wise. Had there not been a previous writ from God, from Allah, you would have been sternly punished for what you took. Enjoy, therefore, the good and lawful things which you have gained in war, and fear Allah. Allah is forgiving and merciful. So see, these gangs are that extra. But the lawful, focus on the lawful most of all, but once you got the lawful, the wholesome, the good for you. Because there's plenty of things like, for example, that you would eat or wear or whatever that, could be better, right? Or maybe it's not entirely good for you. Prophets say to those who you have taken captive, if Allah finds goodness in your hearts, He will give you that which is better than what has been taken from you, and He will forgive you. Allah is forgiving and merciful. But if they seek to betray you, know that they have already betrayed Allah. Therefore, He has made you triumph over them. Allah is all-knowing and wise. those that have embraced the faith and fled their homes and fought for the cause of Allah with their wealth and with their persons, and with those that sheltered them and helped them, shall be as friends to each other. Those that have embraced the faith but have not fled their homes shall in no way become your friends until they have done so. But if they seek your help in the cause of the true faith, it is your duty to assist them, except against a people with whom you have a treaty. Allah is cognizant of all your actions. The unbelievers give aid and comfort to each other. If you fail to do likewise, there will be disorder in the land and great corruption. Those that have embraced the faith and fled their homes and fought for the cause of Allah, and those that have sheltered them and helped them, they are the true believers. Forgiveness and a gracious provision awaits them. Notice this thing, the believers. The believer is not just, oh, well, I have this belief. No, a believer is a station. You got Islam, you got Ihsan, you got the movement. But we go over that later. Forgiveness and gracious provision await them. Those that have since embraced the faith and fled their homes and fought with you, they too are your brothers. Although according to the book of Allah, those who are bound by ties of blood are nearest to one another. Allah has knowledge of all things. Now, if we turned to the beginning of Surah 23, we have a list of what we would see with the believers. Like there's talk, like while you're doing a murder, while you're fornicating, while you're adulterating, or there's certain things that if you're in the middle of it, then you're not a believer. Now you can be a believer shortly before or after if there's some sort of turning or something like that. But you're avoiding secular speech. You're avoiding wasting your time. That can make you a believer. You're modest. You're not just not engaging in the physical touch that's might not be appropriate or in context. You're modest. Now there's, like we saw, with different stages of modesty, obviously the spouses can have the most with each other. And then, there's the people of the house, the whether workers or doctors or whatever. And you're careful. You're careful about what you eat. You're careful about the prayers. Well, what you eat is not entirely what's being said here. But you could say that because the unlawful shedding of blood can be involved in your dinner. And in Surah 48, you talk about these people that were going around, oh, we're believers. Yeah, well, but don't call yourself a believer as a sectarian sort of thing. Those that have since embraced the faith and fled their homes and fought with you, they too are your brothers. Brothers, sisters, we're talking about the same thing, gender neutral, all that. According to the book of Allah, those who are bound by ties of blood are nearest to one another. Allah has knowledge of all things. And as we see again and again, according to the book of Allah, that's obeying God, obeying what Muhammad said on a religious respect, that is obeying the apostle. And doing that is in line with the previous generations of prophets and messiahs and Emmanuels and Christs and avatars and whatever you want to call it.